They say the New York sewers are alive. Not with rats or roaches, but something much worse, something that shouldn't exist. Back in the 1930s, families flushed baby alligators down the toilet, thinking they were cute until they got too big. But they didn't die. They adapted. Now, deep beneath the city, in tunnels where no light dares to go, these beasts have mutated, thrived, and bred. They've grown blind but sharper, hungrier, twisted by decades of chemicals and darkness. And if you hear something slithering through the grime behind you, it's already too late. I was working sanitation detail for the city, one of the overnight crews sent in when someone reported a blockage in the Lower East Side. It was routine stuff, broken pipes, build-up, once even a car bumper wedged between tunnel walls. But that night, everything stank wrong. The air felt thick, like it had teeth. We descended into the bowels through a rusting grate behind an abandoned building, the lights flickering from our headlamps barely cutting through the thick mist rising off the sludge. The pipes were groaning, and something kept echoing, not rats, not dripping water, something wet and slow dragging across stone. My partner, Miller, cracked a joke about Ninja Turtles. Then he screamed. I turned and saw it, just for a second. It was massive, longer than a limousine, its scaly hide slick with grime. Its jaw unhinged impossibly wide, teeth jagged like broken bottles. It clamped down on Miller's torso and pulled him into the water with one jerking motion. Blood sprayed across my face. I ran, slipping through slime, my boots splashing in crimson puddles. The screams kept echoing behind me, high-pitched, then gurgling, then silence. I don't remember climbing out. I just remember the manhole slamming shut behind me and the sudden dead quiet above ground. They never found Miller's body. I never went back. But sometimes, when I pass a storm drain, I swear I still hear his voice screaming from below, and the low growl that follows. The phantom hitchhiker. If you're ever driving late at night on a lonely stretch of road and see a girl in a white dress thumbing for a ride, don't stop. She's been there for decades, always the same. Young, soaked from the rain, pale as chalk, and eerily quiet. Some say she died in a car crash near mile marker 43 and now wanders, trying to get home. But if she gets in your car, you might never leave the road again. Because the phantom hitchhiker doesn't want to go home. She wants company in the crash that took her. The rain had been coming down in sheets for hours, turning Route 17 into a black mirror. My wipers barely kept up. I was headed back from a job upstate, already running late and nodding off when I saw her, a girl in white, standing just beyond the beam of my headlights, barefoot and soaked to the bone. She looked desperate. I stopped. Stupid. She didn't say a word when she climbed into the passenger seat, just stared ahead with wide, glassy eyes. Her skin was waxy. Her hair clung to her face like seaweed. She whispered her destination, just past marker 43. I nodded and kept driving. That's when the radio started fuzzing out, static and strange murmurs. The air got colder, and my breath fogged the windshield. When I glanced at her again, her face had changed, bloated and bruised, lips torn, eyes bleeding. Her head slowly tilted toward me. I didn't make it home, she whispered. The headlights died. I swerved, screaming, but the car kept going even though I'd taken my foot off the gas. Then I saw the wreck. A rusted-out car, embedded in a tree just ahead, the glass shattered and dried blood on the windshield. She turned to me, face inches from mine. Let me show you what happened. The car crashed. I woke up hours later, upside down, covered in blood, mine and someone else's. No sign of her. Just a soaked white dress on the road behind me. I never take passengers now. Especially not girls in white. In the dense forests of North America, there's an eerie legend whispered by hunters and hikers alike, the crying baby. People hear the sound of an infant sobbing in the distance, always just out of reach, echoing through the trees. The natural instinct is to help, to follow the cries, to search. But they say the voice isn't real. It's a lure. A mimic. A thing that wants you alone and off trail. No one knows what it really looks like because no one comes back after they find it. If they ever find anything at all. It started on the third night of our hiking trip through the backwoods of northern Oregon. We had just set up camp when I heard it, faint but unmistakable, a baby crying somewhere off in the trees. The others laughed it off, said it had to be an animal or the wind, but the sound, it was too human. Too helpless. That night, the crying came closer. It drifted through the trees in wet, gasping sobs, like a baby choking on its own breath. I couldn't ignore it. Something primal kicked in, some awful parental instinct, even though I've never had kids. I left the tent. I followed the sound. I didn't even realize I'd strayed so far from camp until I turned around and couldn't see my flashlight beam reaching anything. The trees had thickened. The cries grew louder. Then they changed. They didn't sound like a baby anymore. They gurgled, clicked, sharp, throatless sounds, like something learning how to imitate a child. And then I saw it. It stood in the clearing, pale and crawling, its limbs too long, the skin too stretched, and its mouth hanging too wide. It smiled at me with rows of baby teeth, and in its arms, twisted like they'd been broken and healed all wrong, it cradled something. A real baby. Or what was left of one. I ran. I don't remember screaming. I just remember the blood in the leaves and the gurgling laugh behind me. The man with the hook, love is blind, but terror has perfect aim. Every small town in America has some version of the Hook Man story, a deranged killer with a metal hook for a hand who stalks teenagers making out in parked cars, waiting for the right moment to strike. Some say it's just a tale to scare kids out of fooling around. Others swear it started with a real escapee from a nearby asylum. Whatever the truth is, one thing's always the same: if you hear scratching at the door, it's already too late. We thought we were alone out there. Me and Cassidy, parked near the cliff edge under the stars, windows fogged from our breath. Just another weekend night out past curfew. Just us, the dark, and the quiet. Then we heard it. Scratch. Scratch. Metal against metal. Slow and deliberate, like someone dragging something sharp along the car's side. I sat up. Probably a tree branch, I muttered, knowing damn well there were no trees near the cliff. Cassidy looked scared. She whispered, "Don't open the door." I didn't. I just started the engine, threw the car in reverse, and peeled off down the gravel road. We didn't say anything else until we got back to town. It was only when I dropped her off and went to her side of the car that I saw it. The long, curving gash along the door. And hanging from the door handle, still trembling ever so slightly in the night breeze, a rusted metal hook, slick with fresh blood. Cassidy never spoke again. The police found her the next morning, curled up in her bed with her tongue torn out and her jaw wired shut. I still don't know if the hook man followed me too. But sometimes I hear scratching on my window at night. I don't check anymore. The sewing room whisperer, needle. Thread. Flesh. Among vintage clothing collectors and estate sale pickers, there's a hushed rumor about a specific tag, one with no brand, just a stitched red thread in the shape of an eye. Clothes with that tag are never on hangers. They're always tucked away, hidden, wrapped in tissue paper. If you find one and try it on, they say you'll hear the sewing room whisperer. A voice that hums as it stitches your soul to the garment, and you'll never be able to take it off, even after your body starts falling apart. It was in the back room of a dead woman's estate, an old armoire, untouched by dust, humming softly. Not electrically. Just humming, like someone on the other side of the wood was singing. Inside was a jacket. Black, Victorian style, the stitching too perfect. And on the tag, that strange red thread forming a sideways eye. I tried it on. The moment I did, I felt something slip beneath my skin, cold, jagged. The jacket tightened. Needles pierced from the inside, threading through my muscles, locking me into place. Then I heard the whispering, not from outside, but within. From the seams. It hummed a lullaby of pain, describing what it was doing in a soothing voice, stitching tendon to silk. Binding bone to wool. Making you mine. I screamed as I ripped the sleeves, only to see tendrils of sinew unravel with the fabric. I am still wearing it. It doesn't come off. Now I hum, too. The grinning widow, she knocks 3 times, leaves no footprints, and smiles so wide it splits her face. If you hear the knock and smile back, she stays forever. In the Rust Belt towns of Pennsylvania and Ohio, people whisper about the grinning widow, a pale-faced woman in mourning garb who appears at the windows of the recently bereaved. They say she visits widowers first, then orphans, then anyone who dares to look back at her and smile. If you don't return the grin, she vanishes. If you do, she enters. And no door, no prayer, no screaming will ever make her leave. It happened the week after my wife died. I hadn't eaten in days, hadn't slept more than a few minutes at a time. The house still smelled like her, like lemon shampoo and pain medication. I kept thinking I was seeing her shadow around corners. But then, on the 4th night, came the knock. 3 slow taps on the bedroom window. And when I pulled the curtain back, there she was. A tall woman in a black veil, head tilted, her mouth spread so wide across her face that it looked ripped at the corners. Her lips were too red, too wet. She didn't blink. She didn't breathe. She smiled. Some horrible, grief-dulled instinct made me smile back. I didn't even know I'd done it until I saw her expression change. That grin grew wider. The veil lifted in the windless air. She raised one gloved hand, slowly pressed a finger to the glass, and whispered, "Thank you." I found black thread sewn into my bed sheets the next morning, long strands like hair, trailing off into the closet. Every mirror in the house started fogging up from the inside. And every night since, she's been standing a little closer to the bed. She never speaks again. She just grins. And I swear her mouth is still growing. The lights under the lake, if you see lights swirling under the water, don't look too long. They're not reflections, they're eyes. There's a remote lake in northern Wisconsin called Sturgeon's Hollow, and no one swims there anymore. Locals say the water's too still. Too cold. That it watches. In the 1970s, a string of disappearances, teenagers, hikers, even fishermen, all vanished near its shoreline. Only one body was ever found. Skinless. People claim that when the sun sets just right, you'll see lights drifting below the surface, like lanterns dancing in black water. But the lights aren't from boats, and they're always looking up. We took a canoe out late, just before midnight. I remember the air was thick with mosquitoes and something else. Something oily, like rotting algae. The water was still. No frogs. No crickets. Just us and silence. Then the light started. Faint at first, like distant headlights, but from below, rippling up from beneath the lake bed, too deep to be flashlights. They pulsed, spiraled. Hypnotic. Ryan leaned over the edge, trying to see the source. That's when something grabbed him. No splash. No scream. Just gone, pulled down so fast the canoe nearly tipped. I shouted his name. I reached in. My fingers touched something. It wasn't Ryan. It was soft, spongy, like peeled fruit, and it gripped my hand with something cold and slick, and I heard a wet whisper in the base of my skull, "See me." I pulled back. We paddled to shore. But when I got home, the lights came with me. They shimmer in my shower drain now. They pulse in my cereal bowl. Last night, I looked in the toilet and saw my own face looking back, but the eyes were glowing. The pale thing in the phone line, he doesn't knock. He calls. And if you answer 3 times in a row, he steps through the static. Before smartphones and streaming, there was a legend whispered over rotary lines and dial tones, the pale thing in the phone line. Kids in the 80s played a game. You dial a number that doesn't exist, listen for the voice, and repeat what it says. The third call. That's when you're supposed to hang up fast. Because on the fourth, it's not a voice that answers. It's a breath. Right behind you. I found an old landline phone at a thrift store, one of those bone-white units with the curly cord and number dial. Thought it'd be retro, cool. I didn't expect it to ring the moment I plugged it in. No caller ID. No tone. Just a whisper, repeat this. And then a phrase in some strange, consonant-heavy language I couldn't understand. I didn't know why, but I repeated it. The next night, same time. Different phrase. I repeated it again. The third night, I tried to unplug the phone. It wouldn't budge. When it rang again, I heard static first, like 1,000 flies buzzing through wet cloth, and then the whisper, say it one last time. I didn't want to. My mouth moved anyway. The lights flickered. The phone cord uncoiled, slowly stretched across the room like a tendril. The receiver flopped to the floor, still hissing static. Then I felt the breath. Cold, sour, like mildewed skin. I turned around. There was something behind the curtain. I haven't moved since. Because if I do, the line will go dead. And I think that's what he wants.